Okay, we're going 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome, everybody, to Cultivated Live. I'm Jeremy Burke, your friendly editor-in-chief. Today, we're very excited to bring you Eric and Kristin Rogers, the co-founders of Levia. So, Eric and Kristin, welcome. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having us. This is
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So let's just dive into it. You both have a very interesting founder story. I think one that piqued our readers' interest as well as my own. You founded Levia, you exited the brand, and then you reacquired it in September. So whoever wants to take the question, talk to us a little bit about why you reacquired the brand and a little bit about how that process went.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a long road to get the brand back. At this point, we started those discussions in January of 2024, right? Really before any of the broader context of sort of what the market has evolved to and moves Ayr has made since. But for us, we sold the brand very quickly. After launch in 2021, we sold in 2022. Candidly, I felt like we were just at the starting gate of what we were trying to accomplish. So I was very reluctant. But we had raised money, we had a fiduciary responsibility. So I exited at that point, but Kristin actually stayed on to run the brand day to day and make sure that we continued to see the vision forward that we had laid out for the brand. Our goal was always for Levia to first exist, but second, to be in the national conversation for cannabis beverages. Levia was the first cannabis beverage to launch on the East Coast. East of the Mississippi. We're very proud of that and really helped to establish the category, sort of on this side of the country as it had been emerging sort of in the western parts and some of the early legal markets. So the goal to buy it back was, we felt like with the emergence of hemp beverage, it was sort of unique to the beverage space. You saw a lot of adoption as sort of the growth and distribution of hemp beverages started to come onto the scene. So we felt very strongly that for Levia to continue to grow and thrive and compete, with many of these brands, that we felt like we were, more established. We had a better brand architecture, better tasting drink, all these reasons to believe in our product, that we felt it was incredibly important to pursue hemp. So even though I wasn't involved, Kristin and I sort of got together and created a pitch for like, hey, what is the path into hemp? How do we help elevate this brand? But it was serendipitous timing in that from an MSO perspective, they were very against the idea of hemp, right? It really threatened their regulated infrastructure that they had invested hundreds of millions of dollars on the retail side, that if all of a sudden you can go buy a comparable product at the liquor store, well, that threatened everything that they had done. So when we put that pitch forward, it was sort of like, that's not an area that we're really looking to expand into right now, but maybe there's a way we could work together to make it happen if this is truly sort of the path forward for Levia in some capacity, because we felt that if we didn't continue to grow, well, then the brand was going to die. And, it goes back to our first goal of that. We wanted Levia to exist. We felt like we had a lot to offer the market overall. So those conversations started and continued to trudge forward through changes in leadership, through getting peeks into the broader picture of what was going on in Ayr in terms of their restructuring and what they were doing. But we're super grateful that the timing sort of came together when it did. And we've been sort of back and trying to help guide the brand, for the last 6 months or so. And we're seeing a lot of exciting growth, a lot of sort of recapturing and new energy being breathed back into the brand.
Yeah. Eric, I want to follow up on one thing before we get into the hemp THC discussion, because I think that's really interesting. Teasing out the founder story a little bit. I mean, you sold Levia relatively quickly as far as founders go, a year into it. What was that like, kind of saying goodbye to the brand that you built so quickly? Was that a hard decision to make? And, I think what you said about fiduciary responsibility is an important one, but, founders are attached to things they build. So would love to hear that from you, Eric, and you, Kristin, as well.
Yeah, it was an extremely painful process and decision. If I, we have 3 children. I feel like it would be like I was sending my 12-year-old to college tomorrow, where she might be ready, but I wasn't, on that. And it felt, somewhat abrupt in the moment. But the opportunity for the growth, of Levia to partner up with this multi-state operator who already had licenses, who already had real estate, and who had capital to
Right.
invest, to really throw gasoline on a fire that we had started in Massachusetts. And really, we shot, I mean, we were the first beverage in Mass, but we maintained that market share. We had 50% market share, throughout those first few years. As new entrants came on, they just couldn't compete with sort of the quality of the product that we had created. So for me, an incredibly painful process, but necessary to really let it go, because at the end of the day, it wasn't about me. It was about this amazing brand that we had come together, and the team had come together to really create this opportunity for us to even be in a conversation for a buyout.
So, yeah, Kristin, could you talk a little bit about going from the founder role where you're running the show to being part of a larger organization, how that shift was and how that changed the day-to-day of Levia?
So it was really exciting. In fact, I think the best part about joining Ayr was, my background is that I am a substance abuse and mental health therapist, and the stigma reducing aspect of it, and really working on that with a national organization was really cool. I mean, I traveled all over, visited dispensaries in every state that Ayr was in. It was really exciting. And, to be able to really put what my dream always was to be the person who was out there in the community and really helping to reduce the stigma. And to be able to do that, what an opportunity. It was fabulous. So it was painful for both of us, especially because, at the end of the day, this was Eric's dream really at the beginning. And my dream was always, yes, reducing stigma and helping, but like the operational piece and marketing. And, that was where his heart was. And so leaving him there was really hard, but he's right. We were a rocket ship. I mean, we became so big so fast, and it wasn't just Ayr who came for us. So, and we had a lot of investors who we were interested in fulfilling this promise to them. So it was really exciting. And, I think, I don't know that anyone could have foreseen what happened to the cannabis market. I mean, it was like almost like, I think 8 months to the day that we signed the agreement that stocks tanked. It was just for everyone, and it was really tough. And quite frankly, beverage is a very, CapEx heavy product. You got to build stuff out. It's really hard. And so that immediately became a problem for expanding into other markets. So that was really tough. But what I am really grateful for is the opportunity at Ayr. I mean, they had me in rooms that I was able to learn about retail and finance and doing things that I would never have had the opportunity to do had we stayed small. So I gained this knowledge and this insight into compliance in the rest of the country, in understanding these things, which has really set us up to move forward in a much better way now that we've got it back.
Yeah. And since being on the inside and learning more about finance and all those things you said, Kristin, how has the opportunity matrix changed since you bought Ayr back? I mean, the official announcement was, I think, on September 4th. What does it look like in the next month and the next year? What's most exciting to you, and what are some of the biggest opportunities on your plate?
Well, we had our first new product launch. I mean, we do seasonals and whatnot, but we have not released a new product into the Massachusetts market since we joined Ayr. And so we immediately released a 1,000 milligram drink drop that really caters to people who have a much higher tolerance. 5 milligrams doesn't get many people who high in a mature market these days, or people who are looking for something that is a little bit more. And so we are really excited to bring more options to people and really continue to focus on the wellness. We continue to make our own oil, which doesn't happen very often these days. We source and choose flower based on the properties. So, sativa leaning, indica leaning, and then hybrids to actually do what we say we're going to do and focus on different effects. So, we've kept that going the entire time. And the fun thing about Massachusetts is that because everything is state by state, right? We kept our infrastructure. Nothing changed really with how we do things day to day. So, we really haven't had to slow up at all, which has been really fun. We did a brand refresh. We brought back our original label designer, Brandon Sear from Sear Creative. And I think August 1st, we had everything in market, all the new labels. So we're really excited to just start fresh and start over. And I mean, just in the past year and a half, hemp has exploded. Right. So many, the market is changing so rapidly, and trying to keep up with it has been nuts. But I think we're very lucky with the timing, in heading into sort of this, Levia 2.0.
Yeah. On the hemp question, Eric, you brought that up initially, and I think that's of paramount interest to our readers. What does that look like for a brand on both sides of the equation, right? Where, you have the hemp side that allows you much more distribution, much more access, the sort of consumer normalization piece that you don't necessarily get through regulated dispensaries, but you did get your start in regulated dispensaries, right? So how does that look for you right now? And what does that opportunity present? And I guess, not to add to the question, but there must be some challenges associated with that as well in terms of supply chain and regulation. So would love to just hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Levia, as a brand, when we were rolling this out, we wanted to simplify, sort of the construct of cannabis for a broader market consumer, right? So that is where we created Achieve, Celebrate, and Dream, right? These were effects that you could gravitate towards for these clear and predictable outcomes. Achieve is our get stuff done. You've got that yard work to do, you've got some laundry to do, you just want to feel great doing it. It's Achieve. Let's go get some stuff done, right? Celebrate is that backyard barbecue, the social, upbeat, you're relaxed, that relaxed confidence, to you, that classic sort of hybrid in that moment. And then we have Dream, which is more that, hey, that sweet treat. It's a sweeter flavor. It's sort of, help you to relax, that more full body experience compared to that more cerebral we're getting on sort of the Achieve side. So when we started to think about the hemp space, well, we're effects led. Well, so much of the hemp space is just dominated with Delta 9, right?
Right.
Yes, you're seeing a ton of drinks that are adding adaptogens. You're starting to see some minor cannabinoids coming up. But really for us, we felt like it was critical to really start to nail that formulation so that we could mirror those effects. So we started playing around with a number of different cannabinoids, minor cannabinoids, to really say, okay, what is that perfect combination so that we're most closely mirroring these effects that we've created because of how dynamic the plant is, right? Kristin mentioned, like, we do all of our own extraction on site. Well, we lose a lot of that control when we're moving into the hemp market. So we wanted to be sure that we shored up a consistent experience, for consumers so that as they're trying to experience the brand in either of those spaces, that they're as closely connected as they can be overall. So that was sort of step one on the challenge side of, how do we replicate this? Because part of our reason to believe in the regulated space is we're not using distillate, we're using full spectrum oil, we're leaning in, we're curating these strains, we're extracting them, we take great care in the process, and we believe in sort of that whole plant approach. So we've been doing that over the last, call it 6 months, really kind of R&Ding, trying to trial and error and get to a point where we feel like we're close. And now, I'd say we're probably 3 or 4 weeks out from really rolling out some hemp products for consumers to start experiencing in that space. So for us, it's hard in Massachusetts, especially when you saw the hemp opportunity really coming, and you saw brands lean into it. You would then see them get ostracized from the regulated market. Like, retailers didn't want to work with you if you're going to buy it somewhere else. Now, Massachusetts is a little unique right now in that there's sort of hemp prohibition. unless it's produced out of a regulated facility, which really doesn't make a lot of sense, because then you're just going to buy a hemp product at a dispensary versus this sort of broader opportunity of going to a liquor store or even going into a bar, as you can to our neighbors in the north in Maine, and just get a hemp THC drink right alongside beer or liquor, right? You have that
Right.
that kind of choice. So for us, we really just more saw it as an opportunity of, we want to get, liquid to lips. How do we get the message of Levia out to a broader audience? And hemp really created that opportunity for us to create broader appeal, right? To start with direct to consumer, so that, hey, we can start leaning in. I mean, we get half a dozen, emails a week from the surrounding states asking if we can ship to them, as far down as Florida. People that are
Yeah.
looking for the product actively, that are trying to engage with it. Hey, I tried your product when I was up at the Cape this summer and it was unreal. How do I get it in New York?
Right.
And obviously the regulated aspect comes with its challenges. You got to find a partner with the right amount of infrastructure that can support your product. And, we built it in mass. We're trying to find partnerships in other states. So we really view the hemp opportunity as this halo that we can kind of create to help feed the regulated brand, because we're not going anywhere on the regulated side. So sort of to start, everything that we're doing in the hemp space will actually mostly exclude Massachusetts. We want to provide the opportunity to everybody else while supporting our retail partners that we have here in the regulated industry. One of the things Kristin didn't share was part of also that growth is, this year alone, we've added probably 130 new retail partners. We're at about 250 across the state. The last thing we'd want to do is not feel like they're getting supported. So nothing's changing from our regulated approach as we continue to grow. We're hoping this is additive, right? It's going to get more people aware of the product because we're able to market in a different way. We're able to talk to a broader consumer set. And we're hoping that in turn, it drives consumers into the regulated market for the good stuff, the stuff that we're controlling, that sort of supply chain, that experience, and all of that. So we're excited, and we're very mindful that it can be, depending on the audience, it's a polarizing topic, right? If you're a dispensary partner in Massachusetts, you've invested tons of money to just exist. And now you're saying, hey, Levia is one of our top selling SKUs, and now you're telling me that someone can ship it direct to their door or go buy it in a liquor store. That's a threat. So we're trying to work with our retail partners to show how this is going to be complementary, not in replacement of, that this is meant to enhance sort of the amount of awareness we have, the amount of consideration, and the customer base, right? There's still a lot of consumers in Massachusetts, despite it being a mature market, that are afraid to walk into a dispensary. Knowing that, hey, maybe they could, their friend tells them they got something shipped to their door. It opens up their mind about what the possibility is and what that consumer experience could be. And you pair that with some hopefully potentially softening regulations in Massachusetts to let windows be clear and let consumers peek in and see the scary dispensary experience and soften it, that we can continue to drive growth, within that regulated space as well. Especially because, hemp always seems to be floating in the balance right now, right? Is it going to be banned? Is it not going to be banned? And again, continued focus on Delta 9 only, and that's where we're trying to create more well-rounded experiences for consumers as we start to dip our toe into that hemp space.
Yeah, absolutely. Super interesting. Kristin, I want to turn to you. You guys are in Massachusetts. One of the biggest headlines in Massachusetts cannabis market, cannabis industry right now, is an initiative to re-prohibit cannabis in the state. Can you tell us a little bit about what's behind this initiative? And, not that you have a crystal ball, but whether this actually has political legs behind it, because it's the first instance in my knowledge of this occurring within a state.
Talk about things I didn't think that I'd be thinking about in 2025. Right. I mean,
Right.
Massachusetts overwhelmingly passed this in 2016, and that's when people were still comparing us to heroin dealers. So I feel like at least the stigma has lessened quite considerably. And now here we are. I couldn't believe it. I think a lot of us are like this. When we first heard about this, we're like, oh, no, this isn't going to happen. Why would this happen? But you're not wrong. This is growing legs. So we are mobilizing. This is a well-funded, well-backed group. And my suspicion is that this is a trial run for the rest of the country. Let's see what we can do in Massachusetts. If we can get a more liberal state to actually vote for this, what can we do in other states? And I think the most important piece, first and foremost, is that no one is dying of weed. This is a well-known fact. I wish it were more well-known. And I think just in the last couple of days, even, I can see more mobilization. There are some great cannabis lobbyist groups. We're all sort of working together to make sure people are becoming more informed. Because at the end of the day, what happens if this passes? You lose huge amounts of revenue for the state. You know, 30 to 40,000 jobs. We have all invested our lives in this. There are, so many people, so many great people in the cannabis space that truly care about the plant. And, more often than not, to be quite honest. And, we are all in this together to create an industry that is more equitable. And what happens if we go back in the shadow? Is like, does the stigma come back? Do we hurt these communities that were, widely disproportionately hurt by the war on drugs? Like, what happens to this? And I'm really worried that this is coming at a time where we're just getting to the tip of the iceberg on research. Around the world, we are seeing great research on opioid reduction with cannabis use, on alcohol reduction with cannabis use. There's so many things that are happening right now that are showing us things that we've known theoretically for hundreds of thousands of years, but that now we can actually prove right when we get here, we take access away from people. So I am very hopeful that this does not go anywhere, and that hopefully we can get more education out there to consumers to help them understand what this actually is, and what they're looking to do. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to go backwards. We just want to go forwards, and we all want to know what these benefits are, or lack of benefits, right? Like we're all very open to this. I just think that this is the wrong direction for the country.
In my mind, it's hard to squeeze toothpaste back in the tube. I mean, you can look at Canada, and 7 years in, it's barely a conversation whether cannabis is legal or not. It's more about how the regulations work and are they working for public health and the industry as well. But unfortunately, it's probably not physically impossible to squeeze toothpaste back in the tube. So I think the industry, activists, consumers need to band together to fight this thing. Kristin and Eric Rogers have already taken up a lot of your time today. We really, really appreciate it. We'll check back in a few months with Levia now that you guys are back to running the show by yourself. So thank you for joining Cultivated Live. Amazing. And we will see you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity.